Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to GypsyPoet Radio here on blogtalkradio.com/GypsyPoet. I am the Gypsy Poet, and with me, as always, the wonderful, sparkling, and ever mysterious and yet fascinating Girl George. Yes, people, Girl George. Say it with me, people. Girl George, Girl George, Girl George, Girl George. Oh, what a guest this afternoon. I love my Sunday afternoons because I get to host and co-host with, of course, Girl George, GPR. And, of course, she's got a great guest this afternoon who is a very, I'd like to say, a really distinct musician, because I've never experienced having this kind of instrument in person, but I've seen it many times, called a gut bucket. We've got Mugg Muggles on the show. Is everyone with me?
Yes, I'm here.
Mugg, how did you get that name, Muggles? Was that way before that Harry Potter thing? Don't they call straight people Muggles?
Yes, that bitch is going to get letters from an attorney someday. In the 1920s, although I'm not old enough to remember that, but I've done my research, in the 1920s, the slang term for marijuana was Muggles. Louis Armstrong recorded a song called Muggles in 1928.
Those Harry Potter's people know that?
I'm not sure, but in about 1977 maybe, or 79, I started using the name Mugg Muggles. I made it up as an homage to Mesro, who was a well-known joke pusher in Harlem in the 20s and 30s. He was Louis Armstrong's connection. But his name was, he was born as Milton Mesereau, but he became known as Mesro, and he's even immortalized in the tune "If You's a Viper" by the line, dreamed about a reefer 5 foot long, the mighty Mez, but not too strong. Now, anytime they called something the mighty Mez, it was because they figured the weed came from him. But he had a special deal. He had Latino buddies in Chicago that would send him shoeboxes full of Acapulco gold to Harlem. And so he was an incredibly popular fellow on the streets of Harlem because he had pockets full of reefer. And so his name became Mesro, and I decided on Mugg Muggles.
So let's get back to, I met you at the Story Plow. What year was that, 1995?
Oh, it had to be before then.
Well, I didn't come back from L.A. till 1995, so it must have been about then. And Smoker was running the open mic then, and then I ended up being co-host with Joan from 2000 to 2008. You used to run the open mic at the Freight and Salvage, didn't you?
I ran the open mic at the original Freight and Salvage on San Pablo Avenue. Through most of the 80s, I can't remember the exact dates of starting and finishing, but I basically ran the open mic for, I think, about 8 years. And then when the venue moved to the first place on Addison Street, 1111 Addison, I was still doing the open mics there for, I don't know, maybe up to a year. I'm not sure. But then there became a change in management, and we butted heads, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah, I know how that goes. Where are you from originally?
Yes.
I was born in Oakland, fucking California.
Cool, I'm from Alameda. I was raised in Oakland.
in a Catholic hospital on what they call Pill Hill.
Yeah, I know where it's at.
Yeah. And I was raised in the Bay Area, mostly grew up in Castro Valley, mostly. I graduated from the same high school as Freaky Ralph Eno.
Oh, I know Freaky Ralph.
Ralph and I were in the same graduating class, but also a more famous person has eclipsed us both. I was born. Went to the same school as Rachel Maddow.
Oh my God! I didn't know she was from around here. Freaky Ralph set himself on fire.
You know, I'm not exactly sure. It was somewhere on the street in San Francisco. Unfortunately, I had lost track of Ralph for a while, and then a good friend of mine, Phil, called me and informed me that Ralph had taken his life.
Well, Freaky Ralph was this guy that wrote all kinds of bizarre songs, and he was very, very, very funny. He was like way before his time, and then he worked at a bank. Was his regular job. He worked at a bank, and so he hated it. And I've heard two different stories. One was that he sat in front of the Holy City Zoo, which was a place that had comedians, and sat in the street in front of the place and poured gasoline over his head and set himself on fire.
Wow.
Now, the other story I heard was that he did it in front of the bank that he worked at. But I don't know which was true.
He worked for a bank for a number of years,
Yeah, he worked at a bank. So I don't know which was true, in front of the zoo or in front of the bank.
He had some kind of a depressing incident because he never had very many girlfriends, and he finally had a soulmate who died, and that depressed him. And he didn't know much about science, so instead of choosing a flammable substance which would kill him, like gasoline, he used fucking charcoal lighter fluid.
Oh.
And all it did was like burn him over his entire body and cause him to be in a burn ward for a week or so before he died. It was like a horribly tragic thing.
But he was brilliant. He was really brilliant. He was like the funniest one out there. But that's the way it goes.
On a lighter note, on a lighter note, I wanted to ask a little bit about you as a musician. You play what is called the gut bucket. So how cool is that?
I play the gut bucket, among other things. It's a wash tub, the type of tub that people used to take baths in. And they call them a gut bucket because they would also slaughter a hog and catch the entrails in it. And so basically, you take an empty wash tub, you turn it over, you drill a hole through the bottom of it, and you attach a string either by means of an eye bolt or just putting it through the hole and tying a knot. And the other end of the string is attached to a broomstick. The broomstick is held against the bottom edge, which is now pointing up, so it's top. It's held against that, and then you can tighten the string and find a note, and then you can play notes by both tightening the string and by moving your hand up and down in a kind of a fretting manner. I use both because I have a 50% more chance of hitting the right note that way.
But you also play guitar, right? And you have this weird kazoo that you've got a can around that kind of magnifies the sound, right?
I made a kazoo. Well, a friend of mine came up with the idea of making a kazoo out of garden hose connectors. So it's a garden hose. It's a Y connector to make one hose into two hoses, and then the various parts that you screw onto them. Under one of them is a washer with a piece of plastic across it that is just like a kazoo reed in your standard submarine kazoo. And the person that showed me how to build that used to have a can hanging from underneath it just as a kind of a resonator. But at the time I was working on a lot of cars, so I had a bunch of empty brake fluid cans. And I immediately looked and realized that a brake fluid can could just screw right on to one of the hose fittings. So that's what I used for a number of years. And then I discovered that Marble Mystery Oil, another automotive product, a wonderful top-end lubricant, which was highly recommended to me by a Ferrari mechanic I know. I decided to use it because it's a nice red can. It has a beautiful old-style label, and it also has my initials on it. It says M.M. for Marble Mystery.
What about the parade? The St. Stupid Day Parade.
Oh, the St. Stupid Day Parade.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
I wouldn't. The word parade was not coming through, or I would have caught that. The St. Stupid Day Parade is it's put on by an organization called the First Church of the Last Laugh.
Oh,
and the,
wow.
The bishop for the First Church of the Last Laugh is known as Bishop Joey.
Okay.
And he is actually Ed Holmes, who was one of the founding members of the San Francisco Mime Troupe.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
Every April 1st, they have a parade in San Francisco where all kinds of odd and assorted people, from running the gamut from me to Wavy Gravy to just, your standard derelict, are all marching around in this motley group of people. And they have a mock Stations of the Cross type of thing.
How interesting.
We stop at the Banker's Heart, the big granite rock that's in front of the Bank of America building in San Francisco, and throw pennies at it. And then there's also the sock exchange, where everybody brings an old mismatched sock and trades it for another mismatched sock. And a lot of times when people are walking through various business districts, they'll see people watching from windows and stuff, and everybody just starts yelling, "Jump, jump, jump, jump!" It's really a bunch of just real anarchistic assholes having a really fun time.
You go to the Berkeley one? They have one in Berkeley called How Berkeley Can You Get? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I don't know that's. I don't know if they had one of them last year, but I did participate in that 2006 or something like that. There was one, and I was living just on the parade route. So I just came out and just kind of wandered around a little bit, but it's not quite the same. The How Berkeley Can You Be is a little more organized, and the whole St. Stupid's Day Parade is a lot more odd type people show up, as opposed to just your standard everyday hippie.
Not
type.
like the Beta Breakers, where everyone dresses up and runs and has parties and stuff, huh? You ever go to that one?
To which one?
The Beta Breakers run, where everyone
Beta Breakers.
up.
Oh no, I have never
ran.
I've never. The only reason I would ever run was if the police were chasing me.
They have so many things in San Francisco. They have, the Gay Parade and the Beta Breakers and the Stupid Day Parade, and that's San Francisco for you.
Well, actually, in Berkeley, there's a dog group that has something called the Bay to Barkers. It's I've never attended it, but it's some kind of where people jog with their dogs.
You dress them up?
Yeah, I mean, some people dress them up. Some people consider dressing up dogs as animal abuse, and some don't. But and some dogs enjoy it, and some, if they had their chance, would eat somebody's face off for putting that little bonnet on them.
How about your parents? What did your parents do?
Yes, what your parents do?
My father was a truck driver. He mostly worked local. He didn't drive long haul. At least once I was born and growing up. He might have done some long haul stuff before I was born, when my older brother was there. But he was also a severe workaholic, and once he ended up with 4 kids, he was kind of trapped into working a lot of overtime just so he could feed our little fat asses. And so I never got unfortunately, my dad passed away from malignant melanoma when I was 20, and I never got to know him really well, but I bless his memory every day because he is the person who introduced me to the gift of song.
How? Did he play music?
Yes.
He didn't play music, but he had a beautiful singing voice. And he used to, I remember when I was a kid, he would call up friends of his on their birthday and pretend to be Western Union singing telegram over the telephone and sing happy birthday to them. And they didn't even know that, he was just faking them out. I used this gambit once with a woman I had the hots for who went back to Bethesda, Maryland for the summer, and her birthday was in May. And I called her up and pretended I was Western Union and sang happy birthday, and then busted myself at the end, because I wanted to get credit.
It's funny you say that because I do that to my friends too. So, Oh my goodness. Mm-hmm.
And my mother was just pretty much a housemaker, but she was a lifelong devotee of ballroom dancing.
Oh.
She went and danced at a local dance palace in Oakland, which was known as the Alibaba Ballroom, which used to be at West Grand and Webster Street, with a gigantic, real, authentic, ballroom. With I never actually went inside it, but I did see pictures of what it looked like before they demolished it for some fucking Kaiser building. But my father was pretty damn cool and just letting her go out and get her yayas out dancing, because I remember every Wednesday and Friday night she would go dancing, and we would either be with babysitters, or once we got old enough that we didn't need the babysitter, she would give us this was back in the days when a Three Musketeers candy bar was about the size of a half a loaf of bread. And you could actually cut a Three Musketeers into three pieces, and a kid would look at it and not think, what the fuck is this? It was a good sized chunk of
and what
candy
it cost,
bar.
a nickel or something?
Yeah, and she would give us the candy to make us promise to be good. So
what, you just sit around and watch her dance, or you stayed at home alone?
We stayed at home.
Alone?
Yeah, she never took us. She was a really popular dancer there because she danced really well, and back in those days, you had what was called a dance card. And she would go and she would only dance with the people that she knew were good. About 5 years before she died, she had a very good dancer fall on her and fracture her hip.
Wow.
And she was in her 60s, and she healed quickly enough so that she was dancing again within 6 months, I think, of of a hip replacement. Ability to keep time, which is probably aside from my mellifluous baritone voice, my timekeeping is what people say is really good. I think I may have developed that because I was, in utero while she was dancing. She probably danced with me inside her until she was 7 months pregnant.
Oh, wow.
I can't imagine that she would have stopped until she absolutely had to.
I see.
I never asked her. I often wished I'd asked her how long she had done that.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, aside from your family, were there what other musical influences did you and do you have?
Well, just not really tons of musical influences. Just well, the earliest musical influence that I personally had was my father singing to me in the car when we would go on drives, because he had an old station wagon with no radio. And,
what songs did he sing? What songs did he sing?
He would sing the popular songs from the mid-'50s, which was around the time that this was. It was probably 1953, 54, 55, like The Wayward Wind, South of the Border, Springtime in the Rockies. All of these songs I learned the words to when I was like 5. And then the very first record that I ever owned was an EP, a 45 RPM record that had 4 songs on it by Tennessee Ernie Ford, and it was
16 tons,
of course, 16 tons and 3 other songs, and eventually, I actually attended Tennessee Ernie Ford's funeral.
Oh, really?
When he died, there was a mention that there was going to be an open service.
What town?
Hillsborough. He lived over on the peninsula in Hillsborough.
Oh, I didn't know he was from around here.
And it was in some Methodist church there. Stephen Strauss and I went, and what I remember mostly is that the entire choir wasn't there because it was a weekday and all of them couldn't show up. But I remember being in the very back of this church, and the acoustics were so good that you could pick out the alto in the choir that was like up in the choir loft. Also, this church had a built-in organ, and so it pretty much rattled you. It was very much. I don't know if you've ever been to the Paramount Theater or any of the larger movie houses that have Wurlitzers, but those instruments get down to about the lowest notes they play are about 150 cycles, which is almost too low to really hear. It's mostly you feel them. And I remember being in that church and just like feeling the pulse of the organ and just thinking it was so cool. And also learning a very interesting thing about Ernie Ford. He was from Tennessee, so he was a very good rifle shot. Well, eventually he was in the Army during the war, and he taught aircraft tail gunners how to shoot.
Wow.
Interesting. Wow.
So old Ern, he bless his pea-picking heart, But I know that he is one of the finest singers that I could ever compare myself to. And I really like country music, and I like blues. But if I had, I don't know if I could choose between the two, because they're both like they strike just they hit me in the lower chakras like dynamite. What is the point? Take it somewhere else. If you just want to think about music, a lot of people who are like extremely good players are more cerebral and less body oriented. But to me, if the music doesn't make me feel it, I have no use for it.
Of course.
Consequently, I hate a lot of popular music. Well, I've never really. George was like referring to me as a singer-songwriter. Well, I have written like about 5 songs in a 20-year period. But they're all blues, because that's an easy form to deal with, because it's one line, a repeated line, and then a rhyme, But within that structure, you can do an awful lot, and you can,
yes.
you know, I mean, this song that I gave her a copy of, Slow Chewin' Blues. It's one of the first songs. Well, I think it's like the second song I ever wrote. But it has to do with unrequited love.
Oh my goodness.
You know, when I sang that to a friend of mine who is an excellent songwriter, singer-songwriter, Holly Tannen, who I haven't seen for years, but Holly gave me the greatest compliment. She said, "Wonderful use of metaphor, Mugg."
Well, there's all metaphors.
Yeah.
Yes, that's really good. All righty, we are down to 3 minutes at the end of the program here. Is there anything else that you want to plug?
So where exactly are you? Are you in Texas?
Yes, I'm based in Texas. I'm right in the smack dab in the middle of San Antonio, Texas. While George is all the way on the other side of the U.S. from where I'm at.
Well, he knows. He sees me every week at the Missouri Lounge, and it's a long call. Yes. We see each other every week.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
unfortunate.
Have you ever been to the hotel in San Antonio where Robert Johnson recorded?
That I actually go there every few months actually to visit with friends of mine anyway. Yeah, so I go downtown quite frequently. This town is it's getting pretty massive actually, and I'm here just doing my thing. All I do is read my poetry, play my music, and run my show with Girl George, and everything is hunky dory.
Yeah.
Well, folks, please check out this radio program right after it's over. It's going to be archiving in a matter of minutes. I just want to thank Girl George for a wonderful afternoon with lots of laughs and some great stories with the wonderful Mugg Muggles. Thank you so very much.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Girl George, you are a blast. And, of course, I'm the Gypsy Poet. Thank you, Mr. Mugg Muggles. And I am, again, the Gypsy Poet of GypsyPoet Radio, signing off saying adieu for now.
Ciao.
Yes. And Abyssinia.
It's called Good Eatin' Blues. Well, I know you don't want to hear it, but you make me jump and shout. Well, I know you don't want to hear it, but you make me jump and shout. Well, now you look so sweet and savory, I can taste it in my mouth. Your mama must have been a good cook, 'cause you look like a 10-course meal to me. Your mama must have been a good cook. You look like a 10-course meal to me. Well, I'm gonna savor every mouthful. That's how much you mean to me. My appetite is raging, taste buds are beyond control. My appetite is raging, my taste buds are beyond control. Well, I want every drop of gravy, and you bet I'll lick the bowl. Gourmet lover, and I chew my food real slow. I am a gourmet lover, and I chew my food real slow. Well, now say you're hungry too, and you don't want me to go.